Good evening and thank you for joining us. The City of Thunder Bay is considering some massive public transit improvements in order to leverage more than $60 million from the federal and provincial governments.
The major funding is available through the newly introduced Investing in Canada infrastructure program. Council will get an update on that tonight. Public transit is one of 4 funding streams available as part of the $2.8 billion program. Thunder Bay's total share based on ridership is more than $83 million. The federal government will pay 40% of that. The province will pick up more than 33%, leaving the city to pay the remaining 26%, which rings in at just over $22 million. City staff are pursuing a number of transit system improvements, including fully accessible bus stops, improvements to key transfer hubs, reloadable electronic smart cards for fare payment, and a mobile app to help connect riders with buses, among others. Also tonight, council members will hear a summary of the 2019 provincial budget changes that may impact the municipality. They'll also be asked to consider new operating models for the city's community centres and adopt a new emergency management program to comply with provincial standards.
Provincial cuts to legal aid in Ontario have sparked concern for a local clinic and their clients. Starting April 1st, funding was cut by 35%, and officials from Kinaawea Legal Clinic say the local funding is going to be reduced by more than $15 million. Kinaawea provides legal advice and assistance with poverty law issues to low-income residents, with offices in Thunder Bay, Marathon, and Geraldton. Right now, the local impact hasn't been determined, but they say the cut to funding will mean reduced frontline services for all of their clients. The clinic is carrying on as normal for now, with hopes of hearing from Legal Aid Ontario this week with more information. Legal Services Coordinator Sally Cahoon says one of the biggest concerns is that people in Toronto are the ones making the decisions for Northwestern Ontario.
Frequently, when we're dealing with those issues with people in Toronto, they don't understand how other things affect the work that we do here in Northern Ontario, like travel time and people not having transportation, not having cell phone coverage, not having bandwidth to go onto an online service. So frequently we're told, well, why don't you just set up a website or a toll-free number? And that's just it's not an adequate response when you're dealing with the rural and remote communities that we serve in Northern Ontario.
Cahoon says despite the claims that funding is being cut due to a decline in people using the service, they say there is actually an increase in their clientele every year.
The province's television ad campaign against the so-called carbon tax has started running.
The federal government is charging you a carbon tax. You're paying a nickel more per litre. Then you're heating.
The commercials take aim at the federal government, claiming the imposed tax will cost the average Ontario family $648 more a year due to higher gas, heating, and food bills. The ad goes on to say a carbon tax isn't the only way to fight climate change, and Ontario has a better way by reducing trash, holding the biggest polluters accountable, and keeping lakes clean. The commercials come as the province's legal challenge against the federal government's carbon tax is before the courts.
First Nations leaders, municipal leaders, and forest industry reps are worried about the province's plans for caribou management in this region. The government is looking at creating a zone which would allow the northern and coastal caribou herds the ability to travel between the two areas. But according to attendees at a meeting in Nipigon, the changes could stifle the rebound of the economy in the area. Adam Riley reports.
This is just getting carried away. I mean, it's another way that the government's just trying to play with our ecosystem that right now is very healthy.
In Ontario, there are 2 distinct groups of caribou: northern herds, which wander about the far north, and the coastal herds, which are isolated and occupy Michipicoten Island and the Slate Islands. But a proposal by the province has First Nations, municipalities, residents, and industry along the North Shore and in the Highway 11 North area concerned over the creation of a discontinuous zone aimed at allowing yearly passage for the animals. NOMA President Wendy Landry says the proposal makes no sense.
We know when the last time was a caribou was actually seen in our parts of the area, and the emphasis on putting together all of these policies actually is going to affect everybody quite seriously.
Many of the groups that would be affected by the policy met in Nipigon to discuss what the next steps are. A sticking point for many, according to Landry, is a lack of consultation.
And had there been some consultation on this, they would have a little bit more information that would confirm to them that, protecting the caribou in some of these areas is a moot point when we don't have any caribou in the area.
Landry is also concerned as to how much of an impact on the forestry sector the new policy could have. In it, many roads which give access for loggers, anglers, and hunters are proposed to be closed. Echoing Landry is Red Rock Indian Band Chief Matt Dupuis. He is curious as to how the region is to cope with the special needs for caribou habitat.
It's going to be looking at, how they harvest the wood. We talk about things like transmission lines being built, potential mining getting back up and going. And now, with the caribou and the habitat that they require being very, very low disturbance, old, mature forests, how do we in this area, who's finally starting to see more of a boom, allow something like this to happen?
Dupuis says the province wants to implement the policy as soon as possible and will be taking the lead on a smaller working group aimed at keeping the region updated on the policy. Adam Riley, TBT News.
The ongoing labor dispute between Ontario's Sheet Metal Workers Union and the Provincial Contractors Association could be inching closer to a resolution. The parties are scheduled to meet in Toronto in 3 days to try to find common ground and hopefully end the province-wide strike. Picketing began May 6th in the wake of the over 30 labor concerns between the companies and the 4,000 sheet metal workers in Ontario. The 170 local union members set up rotating picket lines outside a dozen Thunder Bay businesses. Local union business manager Dan Krupa says scheduled talks are a step in the right direction, but the strike will continue during negotiations.
The negotiations are province-wide no matter what. So the whole province right now is out on strike until there's steps forward across the province, then our members will stay out. Like I said, I'm trying to remain positive, and I'm hoping that we can get the men back to work as soon as possible.
3 separate negotiations are scheduled to take place from the 16th to the 23rd of May.
A popular Canadian TV show made its first ever visit to Thunder Bay today. The Amazing Race Canada, which airs on CTV, had its contestants make pit stops at some iconic locations, such as Kakabeka Falls and the Terry Fox Monument. TBT's Ian Kaufman has the story.
Amazing Race Canada features 10 teams of 2 people competing for a grand prize of $250,000. Last year, it was one of the top-rated shows in Canada. And for the first time, the show made a pit stop in Thunder Bay. Crews were spotted filming around the city for an episode of Season 7, which will air this summer. Tourism Thunder Bay manager Paul Pepe says the city has been trying to encourage the producers to film a leg of the race here for some time.
We've already sort of seen, just from the social media today, people have started posting pictures. People have seen this. People who follow the show, clued in very, very quickly this morning what was going on when they saw the camera crews and they saw the contestants and they saw what was going on. And we've been following the social media this afternoon, and there's been a lot of really positive. People are excited to see them here.
Area residents spotted contestants and film crews racing across the bridge at Kakabeka Falls, as well as other locations around the city. Pepe says those sightings have generated considerable enthusiasm.
We have been working with producers of the TV show and working with the production company for about 3 years to develop and and pitch them ideas, pitch them itineraries, pitch them thoughts, and so with any show like that, there's a lot of demands from across Canada to create content with them, and it took a bit of time, but we were really happy to finally have them here.
While the show's visit should be a boost for Thunder Bay tourism, Pepe also hopes it will build pride among area residents. When the episode featuring Thunder Bay goes to air later this summer, the city is considering a public screening at the waterfront. Ian Kaufman, TBT News.
After 5 failed attempts to get the government's help to replace crucial infrastructure in the township of O'Connor, the latest application has made it through a key stage. Since 2015, O'Connor officials have been applying for funding to replace 3 culverts on Sitch Road, widen the roadway, and add a guardrail. Originally, the town applied through the Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund, but that program was cancelled last year and then merged with a federal infrastructure program. Last week, the provincial government gave the green light, but the project still requires federal funding approval. Clerk Treasurer Lorna Buob says just passing the first stage for the first time in years has given them some hope. And she says government funding for the project is mandatory to keep the roads safe for residents.
Culverts themselves are deteriorating, and they're on our asset management plan, which is something that they're really pushing. The inventory is showing that it is in poor condition and we need to replace it, and it's $120,000 to replace on our own, and that would be like a 12 to 15% increase on our tax base, which is just unacceptable. Like, there's no way our residents could afford that just alone with that one project.
If the project is approved by the federal government, construction is expected to take place in 2020.
Joggers and pedestrians won't be able to travel across the Boulevard Lake Dam tomorrow or a few days next week as city crews carry out maintenance on the structure. The short-term project will consist of minor repairs to the concrete on the crosswalk, as well as replacing deteriorating posts and railings. Pedestrians can use the alternate walking trail around the end of the lake, including part of Cumberland Street. Meanwhile, design work for the full rehabilitation of the dam is currently in the works. The multi-million-dollar project will include a widened walk path and improved lighting system, which is expected to begin construction in 2020.
Boulevard Lake's very highly used in the city. Lots of people use it for recreation, walking their dogs. Getting rid of that bottleneck will just make it a lot easier for people to be traveling across it. And then, having that enhanced lighting across the dam will assist, in terms of like safety and making sure everything kind of flows across the deck top smoothly.
The 2020 project is expected to take 2 years to complete, with the majority of the work being done during the summer months. A detour route will be set up along the walking path for the majority of those 2 years.
For more than 70 years, WarAmps has been running a key tag service to return lost keys to their owners. Money raised from that program is used to help amputees access prosthetic limbs. Well, 2 young people from this region are among the beneficiaries of the WarAmps program. Corey Nordstrom has their stories.
I just like to play sports, and I just do it just the way other kids do it.
That's 12-year-old Addison Franceschini from Geraldton. Since she was 9 months old, she has been without the lower part of her left leg, but that doesn't stop her from being as active as she wants.
I use just my everyday prosthetic, or have another prosthetic that has an adjustable ankle for different types of shoes in that. And the sports I like to play are like soccer, baseball, hockey, and all those kind of sports.
Addison, alongside 16-year-old Connor Okerlund of Thunder Bay, are champs for the WarAmps. Both attend yearly child amputee seminars. There, they learn a number of things about living with their amputations, in addition to creating friendships with other kids from across the province.
At the conferences, I find it's a very open community. But most of the time, even if it's a conference about being amputees, you tend to forget that everyone's an amputee, and then it's just a group of people that are just hanging out.
Addison's mom, Shelley, says the seminars not only bond the kids, but the families, and teach them all valuable life lessons.
It's a weekend where we're, learning about the new resources available. They're learning how to answer questions about their amputations. They're learning about positive self-attitudes and how to be a confident amputee.
One of the biggest reasons Okerlund and Franceschini are able to attend the seminars and have a number of prosthetics that allow them to participate in a range of activities is because of donations to the WarAmps Key Tag service. It's a private way for donors to get back a lost set of keys through the mail-in service. Connor's mom, Liberty McAllister, praises the WarAmps for the guidance and financial support which allow the kids to be kids.
They provide prosthesis when they need them, any sports or recreational limbs, anything that a young person would want to try. They encourage kids to do whatever they can, and they help support financially to provide for the recreational limbs, which usually aren't covered under other insurances.
Corey Nordstrom, TVT News.
The Royal Canadian Branch 5 Legion is looking to carry out some extensive renovations to their building on Van Norman Street, and they hosted a unique fundraiser this weekend to help make it happen. The Taste of Newfoundland dinner offered the full experience, including the fishy tradition of being screeched in. The event included a Newfoundland jigs dinner along with live music on the Legion stage. About 100 attendees took part and all had the opportunity to join skipper Tommy Codfisher at the front of the hall and kiss a real codfish before putting down a shot of screech rum from the great land that the night was dedicated to.
From coast to coast. From coast to coast. We love thee, Newfoundland. We love thee, Newfoundland. Over the lips, between the gums, look out, stomach, here she comes. Go for her.
we've been trying to do lots of upgrades, and we've had lots of volunteers to help us out, and we've had some donations, but we need more, and this is one way to get them, and to get people into the Legion so that they'll come back.
We all know how the veterans feel, and all know how the veterans have been treated over the years. And I think it's very important that we try to keep the Legions open to help the veterans. This is a great place to be, as you see tonight.
Organizers collected roughly $3,000 in proceeds from the event. All donations are being put into the building renovations, which Legion officials say will cost upwards of $100,000.